So you've downloaded the file showing you the chart with all of the chords on it that we're going to start with. Now the chord names, as you read above, are E, which would be a major chord. The next is E with a lowercase m, and that's E minor. Then we have A minor, D, D minor, and then G, and then C. Now the G and the C are major chords, and we will eventually learn minor forms of them, but they're unrelated to the shapes that we have on the chart now, so that's why I haven't shown them. That will be in a later session. So, what we're going to start with is the E chord. Now the E chord is going to use 3 fingers, okay? Now there are 6 dots on the chart, and some of the dots are for open notes, and some of the dots are for fingered notes. So, what we're going to do is when you're looking at the chart, imagine that you're seeing the instrument in this posture here, okay? So while in this posture, the strings are running up and down, okay? And the frets are running side to side. So on the chart, that's what you're seeing. So that's why you see a dot on one of the vertical lines and in between the horizontal lines, okay? Because that is where your finger is going to go. And those that are above the chart, the dots there, those are imagined to be in this area. Now we have this piece on the instrument, and this piece is called the nut. And there's a little slot that goes, the string goes through here, and when I pluck the string is vibrating from the nut to the bridge saddle right here, okay? So that is all of the length of its vibration. So that when I put a finger, let's say when we put the finger here in the previous exercises on fret 5, what we were doing is we were stopping the string's vibration here at fret 5, and so a shorter length of the string was vibrating, and it vibrates faster, giving us a higher pitch, okay? So that is what we're going to do here with some of these shapes, is we're going to change some of the notes that certain strings sound, and together it makes a certain chord, okay? So, on your chart, we're going to have the first dot, which appears on the 6th string line, okay? Now remember, when you're viewing it this way, this is going to be string 6 on the left-hand side of the grid, and this will be string 1 on the right-hand side of the grid. So with the dot that is there, it is above the grid, so that means we're going to play that string open, or without any fingers in the fret spaces. Now the next one is going to be played at the 2nd fret of string 5, and we're going to use the middle finger. Now when reading charts, I usually suggest a certain order of thinking. And that would be, the first thing you want to identify about the dot is on which string is the dot. And the second thing would be on which fret, if it is fretted, it could be open, but that's what we want to know. What we want to know is, where is this note located on the string? Is it open or on a fret? And afterward, once we've identified those 2 things, we want to know which finger do we use. And that would be written below with letters: I for the index finger, M for the middle, R for the ring, and P for the pinky. So we're going to use the middle finger here on string 5, fret 2. The next note is on string 4, fret 2, and we're going to use the ring finger. So as before, we would have put our middle finger really near the fret so that we would get a really great sound. But when we have to put more than one finger in the same fret space, we have to scoot over a little bit so that there's space for it, okay? And once we've got the ring finger on string 4, fret 2, the next note that we want for E is going to be the 3rd string, 1st fret, and we use the index finger for that, and we set it right there. And then the 2nd string is open, and the 1st string is open. Now at this point, I like to explain how to play the next chord by not just starting fresh and taking our fingers completely off, but how do we modify what we're doing now so that it becomes the next chord. That way we get a way of thinking about how the chords are similar to each other. So, if you'll notice on the chart with E minor, we have the 6th string that is open, and the 5th string has the middle finger on the 2nd fret, then the 4th string on the 2nd fret with the ring, and then the 3rd string is open. So here we have the index on the 1st fret of the 3rd string, and to make it open we simply lift that finger away, and now that string is open. and the second string remains open, and the first string remains open, and that gives us E minor. So from here, what we're going to do is, if you look at the chord grid for A major, what you will see is that we are also using the middle and ring, but we are not on strings 5 and 4 because string 5 is open. We are moving the middle and ring fingers down one string each onto string 4 and string 3. Now you may have a question about why string 6 doesn't have a dot, either above the grid or anywhere along the string. And the reason it does not is because we're not going to pluck that string when we play A. We want to use strings 5 through 1. But now that we've moved these two down here, we have another note that's on there. It's on the second string, second fret, and we use the pinky for that. So these two have to move over a little more because we're going to put in a third finger there. And then string 1 remains open. Okay? Now moving from A major to A minor, what we have is we have all of the same notes, except on string 2, we're not playing fret 2, but rather we're playing fret 1. So we certainly can't get our pinky over there. So we want to lift the pinky away and take the index and put it on string 2, fret 1. All of the other notes remain the same. Now at this stage we'll have to release our fingers because moving to D is completely different than A. So we really have no way of moving from one to the next and making it somewhat similar as we had with the first 4 chords. Okay? So with D, what we're going to have is we're going to have the 4th string open, so there is no dot above the grid for string 6 or for string 5. So we're starting with string 4, and that is open. The index goes on string 3, fret 2. The second string note on fret 3 is played by the ring finger, and the first string, second fret, is played by the middle. So that's the shape we have here. A bit of a triangle that you see on your chart, and so your fingers form sort of a triangle. Okay? Now moving to D minor. What we had done before with E major going to E minor is we had changed one note. And when we went from A major to A minor, we changed one note along one string there. Now the same thing is going to happen with D going to D minor, but the trouble is we have to rearrange our fingers a bit. Okay? So what we're going to do, we're going to start to play D minor. We're going to have the 4th string open, then the 3rd string second fret note will be played with the middle finger. Then the pinky will play the 2nd string 3rd fret, and then the index will now be available for the 1st string 1st fret. So that's how we rearrange our fingers for that. Now some of you may wonder why we don't use the ring finger here instead of the pinky. Well, there's 2 reasons. Number 1, the pinky is usually a little bit smaller than the ring finger, and it keeps this finger from touching the 1st string, because if I lean back and have the wrong angle, I don't get a good sound out of that. So I need to be round and out of the way so that 1st string will sound great. And if I put my ring finger in there, the ring finger is a little bit larger, and so it may be more difficult to get the right angle so that it's out of the way and we get a good sound. Now you'll need to learn how to do that eventually, but we don't have to do the most difficult things first. So that is one reason. The other reason is because you are usually at this stage, being new to the instrument, having difficulty moving the fingers apart. It's not very likely that your fingers have the space that mine do. Mine are kind of used to being spaced out and reaching for certain things. And so in the beginning, a person is used to, again, gripping the hand when they're doing something. So that's the natural reaction that the hand has when we send the signal to do something. It kind of tightens up like that. So you may be struggling a little bit and having the middle finger here and the ring finger really over here. It's going to produce that sound rather than being here. And if you move your hand over, well, then the middle comes over here and it's in the wrong spot too. So using the pinky, it's on the furthest outreach of the hand, and so it's going to be able to be near the fret, allowing us also to have the middle finger on fret 2, and then we can reach out with the index a little bit here, okay? And that puts us on string 1, fret 1, a little bit easier. So that's why we're using the pinky instead of the ring. Okay? Now the next chord on the chart is going to be a G chord. And on that, we're going to start with the ring here on string 6, fret 3. The middle goes on string 5, fret 2. And then the pinky goes on string 1, fret 3. Now this chord is quite troublesome, and here's why. When I put my fingers in here, I want great sounds there. Of course we do. And when I put the pinky on, what happens to a lot of people is that they don't move the pinky, but rather they pull the arm. Okay? I'm going to do that again. Watch my arm as I move it. I'm going to pull my arm back until my pinky touches the string. So that gives me a good note there, but the problem is that when I pull my arm back, watch the angles here. See how those pull over? Right. So if I have them standing up nicely with nice round knuckles and they're out of the way here, if I pull them down and pull the pinky onto the string, here's what happens. We end up with some deadened notes. A buzzy one there, and that one's dead because this one is touching it, causing it to not vibrate. And then this one is touching the next one, causing it to not vibrate. And no one's near that one, so that's why we're not having trouble there. Now we do have a great sounding first string, but we don't want to have it at the expense of these others. So usually what I suggest is that a person spends a few days working on G, getting very comfortable, getting these notes to sound great, so that you know your fingers and hand and arm are all in the proper angles to let you sound great. Then I want you to work on moving the pinky all by itself without moving the arm at all. And often what we have to do is we have to push this knuckle in. Okay? I'm going to turn a little bit so you can see that. If the knuckle is round, okay, like that, and then I pull that knuckle in just like that. Okay? What happens is if I have these at the right posture, okay, and I put my pinky finger in here, I'm really just on top of the string. So it kind of comes out, but it's kind of buzzy. Okay? Now these sound great. That's a little buzzy. So what I do is I push that knuckle in for now, and your finger will learn how to pull on its own. Okay? Oops. Give me a minute here. There we go. It'll pull on its own there. Kind of dances around a little bit at first. But what will happen is it will roll onto that string and it will sound nice. And I'm having a little bit of trouble here because I'm trying to lean over and get this together so that you can see it. But if you have it in the regular playing posture, it'll dance around a lot less. So that's what you're looking for out of G. Now when we move to C, we're going to take the pinky out, okay? And we're still using these two fingers here, the ring in the middle, and we're going to bring those down just like that. So that instead of being on strings 6 and 5, they are now onto strings 5 and 4. Then we're going to take the index finger and reach over here and put it on string 2, fret 1. Now here's another chord that gives people a little bit of trouble in the same way that we have trouble with G. We can start with just the ring in the middle, make that nice sound there, okay? And then when we put the index in, it should sound like that. However, once again, not being used to using our fingers quite as well as we will later after practicing these things, what happens is we go to put the index in, we don't move the index, but we rather pull the arm again. Now that does move the index into the place where we want it to be, but it's not moving the index alone and leaving the others in their place and in their shape, but rather changing the others as well, because we're pulling the arm, okay? So that's what's changing. So it'll produce the same effect, a little bit buzzy there, that's deadened, that's deadened. You may get that note, but even still, we wouldn't get the first string because this is leaning on it too, because we've pulled them all back. So we would start here, get used to that shape, and work on moving the index finger all by itself, watching these two carefully, making sure that they're not moving, and put it in there. So that everything sounds great. Now sometimes you may work on that for a couple of days and it's still very troublesome. So what I usually suggest In the same way that we've split this to 2 fingers, having this off, what we can do is take the ring finger off and put the index in place and work on those 2 fingers in their proper shapes, and making each of those notes sound great. So from there, we'll move on to the next section. Thanks.